It's time for Veterans Issues, the show that brings you information about veterans, military, and their family. Now here's your host, Ken Rollins.
Welcome to Veterans Issues. Ken Rollins here. Appreciate you tuning in today. Today's guest, we've been spotlighting veterans here the past couple weeks, and I got another to spotlight today. His name is Jerry Hatley, or we call him Doc, and he's got a story to tell. We're going to listen to it, so stay where you are, get you a pen, be right back. Welcome back to Veterans Issues. Today we're talking with Jerry Doc Hatley, and I met Doc Hatley in my church at Grace Baptist, and we started talking about our service, and he was in Vietnam, and the last week I had a Vietnam veteran on here at Purple Heart receiving, and this week I got Doc on here, so we're going to talk about his service. Welcome to the show, Doc.
Well, thank you, Ken. An honor.
Good to be here.
Nice to see you today.
It's good to be seen. First of all, let's get a little background. Where are you from?
I was born in Tupelo, Mississippi. I moved to Anniston, Oxford area in January '69. Lived here ever since.
I was born in Tupelo, Mississippi. Oh, thank you very much. I think I'll be talking like Elvis Presley there.
There you go.
But we met down at the at Grace Baptist and started talking, and I invited you up to do the show because you got some interesting things. We're going to show some pictures at the end of toward the end of the second segment. But a little background: you served from '65 till '68. That was a 2-year tour, or 65?
No, that's the time in the service.
Okay.
I was in Vietnam from '66 to '67.
Okay, but your time in the service was from '65 to '68?
That's correct.
Okay. And you got out as a what rank?
I was specialist 5th class.
All right, same thing as Buck Sergeant E5.
Right.
Okay. And you went into service? You said Tupelo. Where'd you join the service at?
Actually, I went to high school in Hamilton, Alabama, and ended up going through the induction center at Montgomery. Okay. And went in
Hamilton's
there.
Up in northwest Alabama. Is
That's
that right?
correct.
All right. And you went in. Now we got to say you was in the United States Army because
That's correct.
I have heard of this outfit called Marines and Air Force and stuff like that. I think they had some. They said they was. You was in the Army, so.
Right. That's a strange story there. I was in the Army, but when I got to Vietnam, because of several qualifications, I volunteered for Marine SOG Recon Patrol. So
What's SOG?
Yeah, Special Operations Group. So we were special ops.
People out there watching television don't know what SOG is. They go, that's dirty.
Yeah, it's special ops.
Yeah. Okay, so you worked with a lot of. And I worked with the Air Force and a lot of the people that do. I don't think you ever stayed within your own branch. Just even if you was a Marine, I mean, if you was Army infantry, you still was associated with Marines or somebody along the way.
Yeah, a lot of the folks don't realize in combat, the rank or classification doesn't mean a lot. The branch of your service doesn't really mean a lot.
Well, when we were pinned down or needed some help, it was not unlikely to get. Support from the Navy, who was off coast, they could fire in 40 miles.
Sure.
And so it takes a lot of people to fight a war.
Right.
And we had that discussion with Governor Bentley. You know, he was stateside.
Yeah.
But it takes a lot of people, stateside and overseas, to do a war.
Oh yeah.
And you can't just leave your facilities back here to go to rot while your people are overseas fighting.
No, everyone's important.
Yeah, absolutely. A cog in the gear, if you will. And so you went to Vietnam in '66 and '67, and come back in '67, right?
That's correct.
365 days. They call it DROS, date of rotation.
That's it.
Yeah. And when you was over there, you went as a what branch? I mean, what was you in? What would you do? Artillery, infantry? What?
I was medic.
Okay.
And like I say, I was attached to the Marine Special Operation Group. Most of our operations were classified.
Yeah. Well, you can talk to me about it.
No one else listening.
Yeah. There ain't nobody paying attention. To be a doc, to be a medic, how did you get from when you go in? You don't just go in as a medic. You went in first through boot camp or something.
Right.
How did you become a medic?
Yeah, my special training, when I had enlisted for the dental laboratory school, So I went through basic, then at Fort Leonard Wood, then went to Fort Sam Houston to combat medic training. After that, to Fort Jackson for survival training, back to Fort Sam Houston for the dental lab school that they promised me, and then to Vietnam.
Didn't have many dental labs over in Vietnam, did they?
No.
Well, that was interesting because our state president is he was an infantryman, but he was a medic, and we call him Doc.
Yeah.
And some of the things you do as a medic, just to give you an example, in one place we were, it was the medic's responsibility to catch the rats.
Yep.
Yeah, they'd set traps and catch the rats because the rats had bubonic plague.
Yep.
And they would, every morning, they would look at the rats they caught, big old rats, and we had a trench that was dug around our company area, and they would put fuel on them, drop them down in that with a string, drop that cage down into the trench, and we would bet on them. We $5 to play, and they would drop a match and light that rat up, and he'd run out of the cage, and whoever's cane he came the closest to would win the $5 or whatever. Everybody together, if it's 5 people, it's $25, and 5 of it went to the medic. So
yeah, there you go.
So anyhow, we had a rat race every morning before breakfast. So that was a medic's job in one of the units, but it was also more serious because that was the first thing you hear as medic when something happens is somebody yells out for you.
Yeah, when you're in combat or out in the field like that, the medic doesn't get to stop. You're marching and then you stop to rest. The medic doesn't really get to rest. He's running up and down the line, maybe salt tablets or a blister. Blister is a big thing in a combat situation.
Yeah. And you have a blister open and you got that swamp water and all the things.
Oh yeah.
As I'm sitting here today, I've got the bad problem with my feet. Even at the point that we're talking about amputating them, and out of that, you definitely don't want no blisters.
Yeah, my point.
Yeah, and that was. But anyhow, you in the second part, I said we're going to show some pictures from the battlefield. The battlefield is always not where the fighting goes, but sometimes back in camp, you have a medical problem, and they call for the doc. Is that proper?
Right. It depends where you are. If situation where there might be a MASH unit or in country hospital, then they'll take care of that. But if not, then you're the doctor. That's where the name comes from. You're actually acting like their doctor for temporary time anyway.
Yeah. Oh, MASH, that was one of the good shows, but they had them over in Vietnam. I remember seeing a bunch of them.
Yes, sir.
At the side, rolled up on the tent. We got to go to break, come back. We got more with Doc, and we'll talk more about, show what he's like over in Vietnam. Be right back.
Okay.
Welcome back in. We're talking with Doc Hatley, and we're talking about his service during the Vietnam War. And when we left, Doc, did we establish how you got that name, Doc, or who gave it to you and all that stuff?
Well, in my case, Marines did. They call all their medics Doc.
Okay. Yeah, Army did too. So it was,
yeah.
That's great. But anyhow, I want to ask the control room if they will to bring up a couple of pictures you brought, sent over, and we'll talk about them. It's kind of like click, click. Here's our vacation. Here's this picture, so and so, and this first picture here. That would be you as a private?
Yeah, that's
first
PFC at that time.
Okay, and where would that be?
That was taken to San Antonio, Texas.
San Antonio, okay. Now the next one is, this is the one I want to talk about. There's a lot of things I see in this picture. You've told me about some of it, but as we're looking at as you're looking at your television screen, the one on the right, the guy with the glasses, that would be you, Doc. You got your left hand on the soldier's right hand and dragging him with your other hand. But that you said you didn't remember where that was?
It was near Battalion Aid Station, but up near the DMZ.
All right, so you can see the angst on the faces of the guy on your opposite side there, his mouth open, and the one behind him, they're either out of breath or they're yelling for somebody to help them, whatever. And the one thing I noticed in that picture that you and I didn't talk about is over to your left and to our right on the picture looks like a photographer, a young lady, military photographer. Is that what I see?
I think she's Filipino.
Okay. But she's a photographer documenting what's going on that day. That's how you got the information hit the press back home.
Right, yeah. And the story behind that, the photographer was Larry Burroughs. In 1966, when he took these particular pictures, he was there, came home, had a credenza of slides, was showing them, went back on a second tour, came home doing the same thing, went back a third time when he was shot down. After he was shot down in Vietnam on his third tour there, is when these pictures were published in Life magazine.
Who did that?
Larry Burroughs was a photographer.
Okay, I know that name.
Yeah.
Burroughs. Yeah, he's well a renowned photographer, battle photographer too. But those pictures, if people will remember what they just saw, in any war, the desperation, you bring in your battlefield wounded, and you're wounded, and sometimes there's several of them, and you have to triage them. You have to say this one first and this one second.
Correct.
Sometimes I've had nurses tell me they felt like it's playing God. You know, they know the chances of that one are not as good as this, but let's get this in here. We know we've got a chance to save.
Yeah, you have to make the immediate decision on who to treat, who not to treat.
Yeah. Have you ever wondered about that guy or any of these others that you might have helped? What happened to them?
Oh yeah, in one of the pictures, there's a black guy standing with a head bandage on. I knew him. His last name was Purdy.
That was
P-U-R-D-A.
That was in Life magazine.
Yes. In that particular picture, he was one in my unit. We all called him Teddy Bear. Mm-hmm. And he just, one of the guys happened to be wounded. In that particular picture, we had brought a body into, one of our Marines had been killed. We brought the body to the battalion aid station so they could transport him from there. And while we were there, the battalion aid station came under fire and mortar attack.
Did you ever know what happened to him? What he went on to do?
Purdy, you're talking about? I do not.
Yeah.
I do know he's deceased.
Okay. So there's that's another part of it is when I was in between the two times I was in Vietnam, I went over. I was detailed as a honor guard to go to as a Army escort rather to go to Dover, Delaware, and take the remains to their families.
Yeah.
And the one thing that when I got to the families, the first thing they want to know, did I know their son or their brother or whatever? Yeah. And of course, when you send somebody from the battlefield, that's the last time you see them.
Yeah.
And to see them at home with their family it's a different feeling. So once you put them on that chopper, that's probably the last time you're going to see that person.
Yeah.
Don't know what happened to them.
Yeah. 10 of the guys that were in my patrol in my unit have gotten together over the years, but unfortunately now I'm the only surviving one.
Really?
Yes.
Do you ever think about what you might have done, just your hands helping somebody, what you might have done to help them?
You always think, you always wish you could have done more, which probably could not have in a lot of cases, but you always want to try to do your best to save a life if possible. Not always possible.
Yeah. Well, in the veteran world I live in here, I'm able to touch people's lives and help them out with their situation personally and otherwise, and there's a blessing comes from that, is to be able to say somebody down the road, say thank you for helping my brother, or thank you for helping me, And I'm just thinking, if you don't know how many people's lives you touched in a positive way.
Oh no.
On the battlefield, you don't really get to discuss that while you're dragging somebody through the bushes, do you?
You don't have time. I mean, you're worried about covering him and yourself as well.
Back in that day when I was in, there was some thing called conscientious objectors.
Yeah.
You know who I'm talking about.
Yes, sir.
And they didn't want to carry a weapon, they didn't want to shoot anybody, and they didn't believe in killing, but yet they went in as medics.
Yeah.
But you go back and look at the road, a lot of them ended up losing their lives.
Yeah.
A lot of medics were killed.
Yeah, and being a medic, at that time, you'd bump into a lot of those guys.
Well, being a medic, like I said, when the battle starts, if somebody's hurt, the first thing you do is yell medic.
Yeah.
They don't call for the carpenter or the plumber or give me a mechanic out here, they yell medic.
Right.
And so if you're an atheist and don't believe in your conscientious objector or whatever, that rifle may not help you, but there was the bad guy out there that didn't care. That white cross became a thing to line a rifle up on.
Exactly. And as you know, as a medic, and at that time your training was very limited. The medics now, like in Afghanistan, Iraq, and those places, are much better trained than we were.
Oh,
but with that limited training, we just had to do the best we could with it.
Oh yeah, that's these guys now. I mean, there's people that's open head wounds. We were remember we had the sucking chest wound was our biggest worry. Wouldn't you say?
Yep.
That's what I remember from.
Correct.
Get that big pad and put it on there.
Yep.
And but anyhow, that was a big thing. I want to ask you something. Somebody's asking. Today's paper, it was talking about Iraq, situation in Iraq as we face it today, versus Vietnam. Yeah. A lot of similarities there.
Oh yeah.
A
lot of similarities. I can look at the differences, but you know what? We go in that area and take care of a little problem or a big problem and then leave, and they go, you know how it goes.
Right back to what it was.
Goes right back to what it was.
Yeah, they would take hills in Vietnam and fight like there was no tomorrow, and lose hundreds of lives. Then when it's over with, move off of the hill and the enemy come right back to the hill. Yeah. So it's, and seeing what we're seeing today, somebody brought up the helicopter flying off, that last helicopter out of Saigon. We got people in Iraq now that are in harm's way. Yeah. And we got just a handful of people over there to protect them, and we got some mean, bad people encircling them. So, but anyhow, we can't fix that. But I do want to say that Grace Baptist Church is a place that people these returning veterans can come and be accepted. Yeah. And people there like you and me that understand them. So we appreciate you coming on the show today. It's been short, but maybe we'll come back later and talk. But this is, I want to remind them that they can come there and they'll be with a fellow veteran. So
there you go. Thank you very much.
Appreciate you tuning in today for this part of the show. Come back. We're going to talk about news that you can use. Stay where you are. Get that pen. Welcome back to Veterans Issues. I want to thank Doc Hatley for coming and doing the show today. I hope you learned something about another angle of a Vietnam veteran that was a doc. And we've had all kinds on here, and appreciate him coming in here, taking his time to doing the show. Every week I talk to you about this issue, and that is donating a car. If you've got a second or third car that you're not using and you want a tax deduction for that, we have a way that you can donate the car, give you a tax receipt so you can deduct this off your taxes. So if you got a car for $2,500 to $3,000, that will give you that much of a tax write-off. And if you can't sell it, but you're going to help, this particular thing I'm talking about is a grandmother that can't get to the doctor, can't go visit her kids, and she needs a car. And we have a donation program nationwide for donating cars. But here in the local area, we can take care of you doing it. So if you got a car that you can do without and would like a tax donation for it, call my number, that 831-2838, and we'll take care of the business. Appreciate you doing it, but it's a sincere thing I'm asking you to do. Now, also, I want to thank everybody that's been purchasing the law enforcement tag. That's going to help us build the memorials up here in Anniston for the law enforcement firefighters in Iraq and Afghanistan. But that law enforcement tag, a portion of what the cost of that tag goes to the memorial in Washington, D.C., where the names of all of our fallen killed in the line of duty are located. And I want to thank WEAC TV 24 for doing this show every week, allowing us to do that and get the message out there to you. We also want to thank Representatives K.L. Brown, Steve Hurst, and Randy Wood for sponsoring the Veterans Moments that I do on here every week that tells you about the laws that's been passed that benefit veterans. And we're going to be talking about some more of those after the show today, so keep your eyes on WAC TV 24 for Veterans Moments, and it'll tell veterans what they're eligible for. So it's the only place you're going to get it. There's no other place that we know of. And now, you know about the Chehaw Regional Humane Society out there that they need some things like blankets and sheets and treats and things like that. And the phone number to call to see what you can do to help them is 256-241-3647. That's 256-241-3647. And I got to tell you about something. They do not sponsor the show, but they are a great company. Oxford Tire Service down here on Highway 78. They give 10% off to all you veterans, and they fix a lot of things other than tires. So believe me, they do. And I've never sent somebody down there that they didn't feel blessed by meeting those folks. They do a great job. We've got a great mechanic, and a lot of guys that do good work there. So Oxford Tire down on 78 there. Let me see what I want to do about that. I don't want to talk about the parking, but I do want to tell you about HMR. HMR, the contractor that has our veterans homes down in Pale City, they are still hiring. So if you go on to hmrveteranservices.com and up in the right hand side on the career, choose the career button and see what they've got available down there, because not only if they get all of them hired, occasionally they have an opening. So check them out. It's a great company to work for. They do good work, and you get to take care of America's heroes too. Let me see. Somebody asked me about the cane. I've got a cane with the eagle on it. That'd be Jack York at 256-237-4743. 237-4743 if you would like one of those canes. Now this week, shout out Betty Carr, hey Betty, and Caitlin and Bella. And this week's show, I want to do this to all my fellow Vietnam veterans out there that in the area, all around from Birmingham on back over here. Appreciate your service and welcome home to all of you. And you got an interesting story, give me a call. We'll have you on the show. See you next week right here on Veterans Issues, and here's your salute.